Hi, my name's Nick Devon and welcome back to Radio Friendly. I'm going to follow on from yesterday's video and talk about the 10 best albums of 2019 so far. I did this about similar video like this, the same time last year. And I just did the 10 best singles of the year so far. So if you haven't seen that yet, check that out. There's a couple hints as to what my favourite albums of the year would be on that. But before we get into it, there's a handful of albums that didn't make the cut, but are honourable mentions. So we've got You Can't Steal My Joy by Ezra Collective, a really solid jazz album. Better Oblivion Community Center by Better Oblivion Community Center. Ventura by Anderson .Paak, Guns by Quelly Chris, and the Flume mixtape, Hi This Is Flume. And then there's also a few albums that have just come out that I really enjoyed, but I think it's too early to judge them just yet, too early to put them on the list. That's Doggerel by Fontaines DC, the collaborative album with Freddie Gibbs and Madlib, Bandana, Tom York's Anima, as well as Amy and the Sniffers' self-titled album. Okay, so for the 10 best albums, I think, at number 10, this is a new album, but I think it's fucking awesome, and it's Black Midi's Schlagenheim, the London-based Black Midi. I've spoken about him on the blog and on Radio Friendly Facebook. It's a relatively new album to make it to the list. They're a London band, a bunch of young guys that look too young to be that talented, and that's not a dig. They're just really solid, as if they've trolled the music Reddit, so the music subreddit, and just grabbed inspiration from all of the great underground sort of internet favorite albums. I was in a bit of a hole in terms of finding new music when I stumbled upon Black Midi the other week, and it completely shook my world. They have a chaotic blend of post-punk, experimental, post-rock. They're like the Talking Heads of the internet age, and that once again harkens back to just ticking off all those core music subreddit fucking albums, and they've got elements of all that in them. They're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. They are a bit weird. They are experimental for those that don't listen to that kind of music. The opening track, 953, is loud, it's cacophonous, but it's melodic at the same time, and sometimes quite gentle. It sort of ebbs and flows into these brash, thrashing chords, and then just gentler riffs. It's really beautiful how they can ride that fine line between their sounds. Speedway and BM are other highlights, and those two songs, as well as everything else on the album, shows this diverse range of genre influences, as well as the impressive talent for such a young band. So number 9, we have Zoo by Denzel Curry. It's a short, sweet rap album. I was a big fan of Taboo last year, but on Zoo, Denzel Curry adds he's a bit more concise on his themes and his ideas, where on Taboo we had sort of ideas broken into thirds. Zoo's just sort of hard-hitting track after track, broken out with a couple skits. Majority of the tracks on this album are solid hits, I reckon, and they flow impeccably from one to the other. It's an album that, if you're exercising, I put this on when I'm at the gym. It pumps you up, it gets you going. Ricky hits hard. The track Ricky hits hard, and then the track Wish feels like sort of an early noughties an early noughties anthem, and it acts as a breather before Curry amps it up once again with Birds. It's just under 30 minutes long, and Zoo has some of Denzel Curry's best tracks. I'm excited to see where he comes from this, because he's showing confidence in his music as well. Taboo was really that critical hit he needed. Zoo is just showing him sort of at the top of his game. He's having a bit of fun, and yeah, excited to see what happens after this. So at number 8, we have Beware of the Dogs by Stella Donnelly. Stella Donnelly, a solid singer-songwriter from Perth. I've seen her live a few times, as I mentioned in my singles list video I made yesterday. So yeah, I've seen her live a couple times. I've followed her career since I've seeing her live and seeing her perform at Big Sound, and it's great to hear just such a high production value to match her high production songwriting. Tracks like Old Man, Season's Greetings, Tricks, and Lunch have a lovable charm to them, and that's what you can get immediately when you listen to Stella Donnelly. This smoky voice, this charming vocals, has these topical lyrics about gender equality, sexual abuse and sexual misconduct with more with men. Like in tracks Boys Will Be Boys, it's a punch to the gut to listen to. It's beautifully harrowing, and it beautifully captures Stella's performance, the recorded version on the album. I've seen this song live a few times, and when you see it live, you can hear a penny drop in the crowd, and it evokes that same feeling when you listen to it on the album. There's a handful of songs that I do skip on the album, but that doesn't really detract from the joy I get from seeing Stella Donnelly's professional growth, I guess you could call it professional growth, in both her musicianship and songwriting. She's blowing up around the world. It's great to see such a talented musician get the credit she deserves. At number 7, I have Grey Area by Little Simz. I think this is one of the best hip hop projects of the year. The drum intro that kickstarts the album on the track Offense sounds awesome. It's crisp, it's raw, it sounds like it's live too. You get that, it's not as clean cut as sort of those, like the pre-recorded MIDI stuff. Production throughout the album fuses jazz, rap, trap, grime. It's wonderful to listen to all these different genres blended into one. It also has one of the best lines off Offense off the opening song. Lil Simz says, "I'm Jay-Z on a bad day, Shakespeare on my worst days." The live instrumentation sound on the album allows Lil Simz beats to really stand out amongst the sort of cluttered competition she has. The bass line on Boss, the drumming on Offense, the guitar picking on Wounds, all these live sounds really elevate her music and yet let her stand out from the crowd. Simz rhymes are quick, they're raw, her flow is solid. Grey Area, I feel, is criminally underrated. She did just play Glastonbury, but she is from the UK, so she does have that notoriety over there, I guess. I feel like the album is criminally underrated in the hip hop scene, especially in the female hip hop scene. We have our Cardi B's, we have our Nicki Minaj's, we have even, Megan Thee Stallion, but we need to look past the US for our solid female rappers, because the UK is killing it in terms of rap, no matter what genre, no matter what gender we're talking about. And I do think that Grey Area by Little Simz will be one of the best hip hop projects by the end of the year. At number 6, we have Fishing for Fishies by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. It's classic Giz. I mean, I've been a fan of these guys for years, so it's nothing new. It's groovy. You have solid instrumentation from the amount of guitars that they have in the band. It's nothing new, it's what you'd expect from the band itself. It's a genre album. They take inspiration from the 70s rock, from that groovy boogie style rock from the 70s. Opening track Fishing for Fishies is a terrible song, but everything else on the album flows really, really well, and it makes for a solid album. It makes for one of the best King Gizzard albums I find, in terms of just production, the idea, the execution of the idea itself. I think that's important, especially when King Gizzard have an idea. It's not always executed as well as it could be, but it is on Fishing for Fishies, aside from that opening song. To be honest, I'm more keen for the sort of upcoming sludge metal album that's coming out in a couple months. I'm more keen for that than I was for this, but I like King Gizzard and I'll listen to anything that they put out. At number 5, we have Nothing Great About Britain by Slow Tie. My love for Slow Tie started when I heard Gorgeous, as I explained in my singles video. Then I heard Nothing Great About Britain, the single, as well as Inglorious. All the songs are slightly different, they have a slightly different sound, and I wasn't the biggest fan out of the single Nothing Great About Britain when I first heard it. But everything starts to make a little bit more sense when you put it in context of the whole album. I think that Slow Tie has pulled off a fantastic debut record, especially in the grime scene. It's a hefty 51 minutes long if you're listening to the extended cut, which I think it's a solid release for a debut album too. It's not like the Migos or the Drake bullshit where they just throw literally everything they write on tape. Slow Tie I get the feeling that he's very methodical with his music and what he's saying, the beats he's rapping over, and sort of the flow of the album itself. The whole project feels very methodical. Slow Tie has been able to create a chaotic concoction of genres within his 51-minute album. We've got grime, we've got lo-fi, we've got post-punk, and we've got hip-hop, all delivering sort of topical lyrics about the English working class and the English lower class. Doorman is an awesome post-punk fusion. Slow Tie's Cockney dribble over this basic, bleak bass line as if it's straight off of Unknown Pleasures. Is another stellar track. It's showing a softer, more personal side to Slow Tie. The album is broken up with these spoken word silhouettes between songs, sometimes lasting a minute, like at the end of Gorgeous, and it adds like a little peephole almost into Slow Tie's life, into his world, into this grimy world that he's trying to create on Nothing Great About Britain. At first I didn't quite understand them, and I listened to them more and more, and it is an album that keeps giving the more you listen to it. At number 4 we have Pony by Orville Peck. This was the biggest surprise of 2019 so far. The Gimp Mask Cowboy himself, Orville Peck. It was the album cover that drew me in initially, and I've written about it on Radio Friendly if you want to check out my full review. So yeah, it was the album cover that brought me in, as well as the fact that he had just signed with Sub Pop Records. The album Pony is cemented in the country genre. Classic country rock chords transition from song to song, and that classic country twang is evident in the background of nearly every tune. It's Peck's exaggerated and oddly cinematic vocals that makes him stand out. It's almost like Kieran J. Callanan or Alex Cameron to an extent. And then his music has elements of indie rock, post-punk, bleeding through these classic sort of country sounding songs. It's an odd mix, but you just gotta have to look at the guy to figure out that he's not the classic country star. There's a darkness that lingers in Peck's music as well. He revisits these 50s rock and roll ballad style themes, these classic chord progressions that we've heard for 60 years. And it's as if he's performing at the Roadhouse bar in Twin Peaks. It's something that David Lynch would pick for the soundtrack of his next TV show or his next movie. There's a sinister element to Peck's music, while also sort of living in the familiar. And what I mean by that is we have these familiar country, folk, rock elements, but the sinister element, whether it's like his blend of post-punk that moves in, or the way he articulates his words, the way his performance, his overall vocal performance, it's all mesmerizing, dreamlike. It adds to the mystery that's not only Peck, but the music itself. At number 3 we have When I Get Home by Solange. This was the first album of 2019 that really hooked me, and I wrote an article on the blog calling it the first essential album of 2019. It's a smooth running 19 tracks at just under 40 minutes. The tracks complement each other, they sort of bleed into one another, and they create this dreamlike R&B state. Solange's vocals are buttery smooth, and she croons over these funky bass riffs and glittering piano notes. There's some solid features on the album as well, from Tyler the Creator, from Playboy Carti, from Sampha, and production nods to Earl Sweatshirt as well. In a way, I feel like this is the sister album to Earl Sweatshirt's album that came out last year. Earl Sweatshirt, of course, has a hip-hop album, and Solange really lives in more of an R&B scheme, but she blends these elements of hip-hop and trap, specifically trap. But it's this bleakness to its instrumentation, this skeletal instrumentation that I see it sort of marries and it pairs well against Earl Sweatshirt's album last year. The skeletal and minimal instrumentation really allows Solange to stand on her own, and I mean some of the tracks are literally just like a drum machine, a couple piano notes, and her voice, or it's just like layers of her voice. So she really is the star of her own album, and so she should be. She shouldn't be listed, well, credited as Beyonce's sister first and then Solange the musician second. She should be named solely without comparison to her sister, and I feel like When I Get Home is the album that will allow it. Well, she should be already be like that, but I think When I Get Home is the album that should cement her as a driving force within the R&B scene. Number 2, we have the Brian Jonestown Massacre's self-titled album. It's not their first, it's probably the 19th or so album. I don't know how many Anton Newcomb's made, but it's just more Brian Jonestown Massacre. They had an album come out last year, and that was in my top 10 of the year, and in the top 30 at the end of last year as well. Anton Newcomb's music is like a drug for me. I can't get enough of it, and I never get tired of listening to it either. If you like psychedelic music, listen to this. The neo-psych, to say it for lack of a better word, he recycles the classic tropes from the 60s and 70s rock and elevates it for that modern listen. It's not the best album of the year, and it won't be listed in many people's 2019 lists, but Brian Jonestown Massacre is one of my favorite bands. Their hypnotic blend of 60s rock nostalgia and psychedelics make it a great listen, and I'm never tired of listening to this band. So yeah, it made my list. At number 1, we have Igor by Tyler, the Creator. This is my favorite album so far. I don't think anything's gonna knock it, but we'll see what comes out. This is the album I've played the most. I drove around Tasmania, and this was pretty much the soundtrack to that journey. I played it on the morning of my wedding, and it had just come out the day before. But it's not because of these little situations or these memories that makes this album good. It's not because of its situation that I like it that much. Tyler, the Creator, has made his best album yet. In my opinion, I think it's better than Flower Boy. It's a simple premise story album. It's about love and loss. It is a breakup album. It flows impeccably. From Igor's theme to Earthquake to I Think, those first 3 tracks just move so well. It's smart and concise, and tracks never feel like they overstay their welcome. The production sells this album by itself. It's lavish, it's beautiful, there's musical flourishes that interrupt the beats and switch up the pace from track to track. Sometimes even within the track, the beat switches are some of the best parts of the songs. Igor sounds like it is a perfectly articulated concept. It's fine-tuned by an artist with a particular vision. It feels wrong to listen to Igor on shuffle, I feel, as it flows so meticulously. Its ideas and musical motifs reappear as the album progresses. So to feel that to listen to it out of order just doesn't feel right. I think it flows wonderful for a rap album, but at the same time, it's not 100% a rap album, which makes it really hard to define in terms of genre. It shares elements of R&B, psychedelic pop, electronics. It's got, of course, hip hop. There's so much to unpack within the production itself, but Tyler, the Creator, he on tracks he takes a step back and allows his feature to shine, or the music itself to shine. He might only have 1 verse per song, which a lot of the cases he does, but it still feels like a Tyler, the Creator album. If you haven't listened to it, despite your thoughts on the genre, or despite your thoughts on Tyler, the Creator himself, you're doing yourself a disservice. This is one of the best albums of the year. And that's it. That's my top 10 albums of 2019 so far, as well as my honorable mentions at the start. Thanks for watching the video. The link in the description will take you to Facebook, where I post weekly playlists about what I've been listening to each week, as well as take you to the link to the Radio Friendly blog itself, www.radiofriendly.com.au. Hopefully I'll be making some more videos shortly. We've got plenty of content coming out, not all music related. There's some short stories, there's some topical pieces, trying to branch out in terms of content this year. And that's why I haven't been doing so much video. But I'll come back with some more thoughts. Let me know what you think of the video, and what you want to see next. Thank you. Cheers.